But before I get to what's happening with your sign for this month, I just want to mention these two long-running transits, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, Pluto. Now, Uranus, Pluto, if you've been following the astrology, you'll know is very much in the background towards, you know, kind of economic global meltdown, and basically it's very the challenging the social structures, the status quo, the establishment, and shifting things which have been taken for granted socially, economically, culturally for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is still going on, even though technically they've moved further apart. They're still pretty close. And as I've said more than once previously, it's not over till it's over. And we shouldn't be looking to think, okay, we can rest on our laurels now until we get into 2020s. Now for Saturn, Neptune. Well, Saturn, Neptune was hanging in the air a lot earlier this year, around about the time, and of course Neptune rules the seas, and it rules mysterious illnesses, things that can't be pinned down, you know. So of the Ebola outbreak, also refugees traveling with children across very, very treacherous terrain to get to the safety, as they thought, of Western Europe, and being, I mean, a lot died on the way, plucked out of the seas, mostly the Mediterranean, and being tricked and cheated by people, those sharks, basically, who wanted their money and then just left them to die on boats and so on in the Mediterranean. Also had their way barred at Calais, trying to get through the tunnel to the UK, which they see as sort of the promised land in a way, which, you know, everything's relative. So it probably is, it really, really is. We all have to have our promised land. We all have to have it, even if it's just, you know, our favorite sort of celebs on the TV. I mean, it's kind of just our promised land, you know. It's potential of what can be. So it's called hope. It's called that star of hope. And now Saturn is the planet of physical boundaries, material structures. It's also about the status quo, the establishment, and Neptune is very, very ethereal. It's kind of without boundaries. And it's ideological, but it's also about victimization. It's about escape, among other things, and trying to do basically the highest manifestation maybe is compassionate, trying to do the best for the common good, for the whole of all, with all sort of personal desires and ego put on one side. So it's definitely the planet of higher service. Now, these sort of notions are far too sort of ambiguous and airy-fairy and head in the clouds for Saturn, who wants to apply a system to a situation. And it's sort of like top-down, you know, it's kind of the government. So Saturn asks, okay, the how, and wants to deal with the nuts and bolts of the situation. And of course, here we are in this dimension of nuts and bolts, of dualism. So the Neptunian vibration of wholeness and union needs to be, we need to find practical ways to apply things so that it relieves suffering, and it makes sense out of the randomness and the chaos of things, which is more up Neptune Street. So and Neptune's about a heck of a lot else than that as well. But just, you know, for this example, Saturn rules authority figures, and also cares about appearances, cares about traditions and historical standards. But also on the flip side, Saturn is this very, very caring, responsible mother energy, which wants to protect and guard and guide and provide for others, okay, for those in her care. Now, these two planets are a very sort of an angle which makes a lot of friction. And so therefore it's kind of a pressure cooker energy, the same as Uranus Pluto, in fact. And that particular angle seems to be quite adept at manifesting, you know, events in the world, situations in the world, which we in the world have to, on the one hand, take the lesson from as we're grappling with it and struggling with it and trying to figure it out, but also and then get the resolution to it. But also we have to maybe not just bemoan the fact that the thing is happening or the things are happening, whether it's in your private life, which you can probably find in your natal chart, how that might be triggering off each other and then figure out how best to deal with it, so that you keep it harnessed, and then you can really get things more how you want them to be, or in the wider world. Okay, so we need to it's not about what happens, it's about how we respond to what happens. It's always about how we respond to what happens. So at the moment, Saturn is in Sagittarius, which is about long journeys, foreign cultures, different ideologies, different belief systems. Religion, of course, is a big one with Sagittarius, and the higher law. And Neptune is very much about higher laws as well, but even beyond the human realms. It's about total integration and wholeness and individuation and union. So we need to do the best we can with Saturn coming out of Sagittarius. There will be issues around other people's ideologies and belief systems, religions. There will be issues around maybe integration as well of those whose cultural background is very different to another cultural background, and this is all in the mix. It's all to do with coming into the age of Aquarius as our consciousness raises and we actually become aware of these things, whereas 100 years ago we wouldn't have been. We'd have just kind of, oh well, our consciousness wouldn't have let us, just sweep it under the carpet. We don't go there. We don't do that. Saturn is also about the shadow side of us, our psyches as well. So maybe a little bit more of the shadow side coming out here too. Things again which have been maybe taboo or kept from us because of course now we have the internet, and the whole world is becoming a village. We're in a global village. So anyway, it seems to me that Saturn in Sagittarius and Neptune at home very strongly coming out of its own sign Pisces brings in a new kind of confusion and uncertainty about how we help the needy without having the greedy pulling the wool over our eyes. And we could apply this thinking to different situations, like perhaps gun laws in certain parts of the world, and keeping tabs on, who's selling weapons to who, etc., behind the scenes. And I know that's only just the real tip of the iceberg, because it's grassroots stuff is about actually the changing of the hearts of many here. And really, I think, in fact, there is kind of coming in this split, as many saw in the run-up to 2012. There was this two-world split. And those of you who were aware of that, can you see how that's happening now? It's very interesting, isn't it? So how to execute the compassionate service required in an orderly, practical, structured fashion. It's quite a dilemma. So our task is to try and balance a higher vision and empathy and emotional intelligence. There's a lot of clever guys out there and gals. But let's have some emotional intelligence. Let's have some emotional common sense. And I don't mean emotional reactiveness. I mean a feeling common sense. And marry that up with realistic possibilities. Anyway, I'll get off the soapbox. So these two, Saturn, Neptune, have a look and see where they're transiting in your chart. I'll mention that to do with the sun sign charts. And you can even look at the house position, so see which house position they're in, and also maybe even the signs they ruled, which is Capricorn and Pisces. And it might be quite enlightening. And now here's some other news for you, Aquarius. Up until the 23rd, the sun is at the top of your chart, meaning that you want to get on and drive forwards with achieving certain aims and certain objectives, and also you might have to be dealing with more interaction with authority type figures or officials, or perhaps bureaucracy or correspondence, paperwork. Mercury's there as well until the 21st, so it could be that you are more in communication with the powers that be. It could even be a parental figure or a teacher, boss, and others could find you and your ideas interesting, but you should be making efforts to express yourself in the best way you can to get the result that you desire, because there's a certain there's a feeling, a little bit of a feeling of limitation on what you can or cannot say, but also more responsibility about coming across in the right sort of way and under the scrutiny of others. And then both of those move out of there, Mercury on the 21st and the Sun on the 23rd, into a much more forward-moving area, which would be more suitable for you. This is an area where you can feel as though you are integrating in with some kind of group of others with interests in common, or it's experimental if it's not quite like that, but it can be quite an experimental feeling. It's a feeling of being able to move forwards, of making progress, and it's quite forward thinking as well, talking about the future, maybe being surprised by certain things, because there's an unconventional feel to it also, but you can handle that, can't you, Aquarius? Others, in fact, could see you as a little bit unconventional, or you as quite inspiring, as well as you seeing others like that. And as I say, the Sun is there as well, so this is a time when making new friends is more likely, or useful contacts or associations, or just a feeling of coming across some kind of specific group of others who've got an interest or a goal, or some kind of activity that they have in common, and beginning to sort of feel your way into that group. And networking, as I say, can be quite important. And then we have Venus in a supportive mood, in an emotional kind of a way, so it's likely there'll be somebody around there who you can rely on to be confidential, or rely on to just help you keep your emotional balance. That's nice. It's a nice place for Venus to be, but also it can mean that it's a good time to, if you need to reach out for funding or reach out for other resources, and negotiations could go in your favor, but also that you haven't only got yourself to rely on, that there would be somebody else there with a resource of some kind, whether that's money or whether it's something else. And it wouldn't be too difficult, not hugely huge. I mean, it could just stack the cards in your favor, and dealing with somebody who could be useful to you in a material sense as well. Mars is also in that area up until the 13th, so Mars is there for about 3 days more than Venus is. It means that you can be clearing the decks, maybe letting go of certain things, but also regenerating a situation, and re-establishing things, but first of all, some letting go has to be done. Otherwise, it just doesn't work in the way that it's meant to. If you're looking for a win-win solution, and who wouldn't? Well, I suppose a lot of people wouldn't. But if you are, then rely less on your logic for this one, and more on your inner sense, on your kind of emotional common sense, or your intuitive common sense, I would say. Now, both Venus and Mars are in that area, and then they're both going into a very expansive area of your solar chart. Venus on the 9th, Mars on the 13th, very much less introspective than the previous area, less sensitive than the previous, really, really outgoing. Now you get the overall picture. Now you begin to see, not just little segments of the jigsaw puzzle, but the whole thing. You're more likely to be interacting with specialists or teacher type figures, or just people that you can learn things from. You can be more physically active at this time. This is time to take yourself out of the familiar box and try something new, plunge in at the deep end even, but be kind to yourself, make sure you can swim. Or just, take a different route when you go out taking exercise or to and from work or something like that. Sign up for a course. It could be anything like that. But with both Venus and Mars there, again, there's feeling of teaming up, of friends or partners not being too far away, and of that support being there on both sides, either coming to you or from you. Saturn's in a very helpful angle now to your sun sign Aquarius, and this means that you can be successful within a hierarchy or a group of kindred spirits of some kind, in networking, in experimentation as well. This is that sort of area, and you can rise up the levels as you slowly establish yourself. You Aquarians born the 23rd to the 28th of January, or with 3 to 8 degrees rising, are going to feel this energy the most. Also, this is a humanitarian area, so you might be going beyond your own personal life and trying to become instrumental or a cog in the wheel, or just in some way actively involved in humanitarian or charitable type activities. Now, Jupiter has begun his new cycle, and I should mention, of course, that Neptune is in the sign after yours, so you are putting more value, less value on maybe the materialistic side of things, and more value on that side which is, might be a little bit romantic, or it might be that you are trying to do your bit in very practical, material, physical ways to change things in this world. Providing shelter maybe, or, you know, it's just something really, really practical feeling about that. Now, Jupiter is in his new cycle and will be putting a beneficial emphasis onto your joint financial area. This is really, really cool, this one. Even though he's not in a fantastic angle to your sun sign, he's still ticking away there until next September, materially helping your life grow and improve, if you play your cards right, of course, through a partnership, because of a partnership. It could be somebody you know personally, that you're making space for in some way to share more with, or it might be, you know, an outside type agency. But whatever it is, it can definitely give you a boost. That can mean more money, possessions, property, or just, you know, different type of property, or better physical conditions. It could even be a different financial strategy, or sort of financial sort of setup, or domestic setup, that kind of thing. You Aquarians born the 4th to the 10th of February, or with 15 to 21 degrees rising, are going to feel that energy the most. And if you want to look any of this stuff up on my website, it's on DianaGarland.com. It's written up there. That's it for November. If you know your rising sign, your moon sign, listen to those. It'll just give you a little bit more of an angle on this, and I'll see you the next time.